Degraded peatlands have a large number of very significant problems associated with them. Very little can survive there, there's very little food source, it's a very hostile environment.
It's losing carbon, it has poor wildlife. Water is shooting off these bare peat flats very, very quickly.
There was recognition that something needed to be done in terms of the degradation that's going on here. And so it was decided to restore this landscape by returning vegetation to it.
So the question was that if we recovered the vegetation here, how much would the hydrology change? So to do that, what we needed to do was have some areas where we restored the peatland and actually monitored the rainfall, and we monitored the amount of water leaving a catchment area. But crucially, we also needed an area where we didn't do anything, a control. What would it have been like if we'd have kept it?
So the monitoring that we're doing here has been going on for 13 years. Back in 2010, some science equipment was installed here to look at stream flow and vegetation cover and water table. They were the three key things. So we've got a huge data set which allows us to characterise all of the storms in that period, look at all of the vegetation species that have come in, which ones are thriving, which ones have been out-succeeded. A key species that we're interested in up here is sphagnum moss.
Sphagnum moss is the main reason why bogs like this become carbon stores.
And it's really powerful in terms of changing the way that these catchments behave hydrologically. So when we get a big storm, a lot of rain falls. That can be like all in one big cloudburst, or it can be prolonged over a long period of time. If it falls onto bare peat, it just flows off, and that happens quickly. Stream flow, in particular in storm events, is strongly affected by the surface cover on peat, and that can lead to very flashy catchments where the water gets down into the rivers really quickly in big storm events, which can make flooding quite severe in communities at risk further down the system. Now that we've got extensive sphagnum cover here, it takes about 200 minutes for the rainfall to get out of the catchment, and that's because the rain is essentially landing on a big wet sponge. So sphagnum can hold up to 20 times its dry weight in water, and that means that the rain, when it lands on it, it takes a long time to move through because it's moving through this really rough, wet surface essentially.
A lot of peatland restoration in the UK so far has concentrated on stabilising really badly degraded areas like this. But what we need to do now is we need to really focus on reintroducing sphagnum moss to areas where it's been lost.
If we were to roll out the kind of restoration work that we've done here on an experimental basis across all of the available upland deep peat, then there would be significant reductions in the severity of flooding. So in terms of the kinds of sites that we can convince policymakers to fund to plant sphagnum on, that's really widened out by demonstrating what's possible if we try.
And so the experiments that have gone on here have actually helped us establish that, how we can most effectively manage these systems and how we can adapt these systems to make them as climate resilient as we can get.
Our understanding of what's possible here is driven by our science work, but it's just through building up that data set that we're actually able to genuinely understand what is happening here, which is fascinating and very satisfying because it's going really well. The
work here at these sites has shown really clearly a lot of the benefits of rural restoration in stabilising the erosion, in terms of restoring the carbon balance. We now can say that will have significant benefits for storm flow and downstream flooding.
I've been coming up here since 2013. At the beginning, it seemed hopelessly demoralising. You know, you looked around at these vast expanses of bare peat and you just see problems everywhere. But actually, from a very vulnerable starting point, we have managed to turn that around, and nature is kind of looking after itself. So we've restored huge areas of peatland. Positive change is possible. We can do it. We just have to make it happen.